In the heart of medieval Europe, 1348, death didn't merely ride horseback. It soared invisible through the air, transforming prosperous cities into silent graveyards. Picture yourself walking through the streets of a once bustling medieval town. The air grows thick with the sound of tolling bells, each ring marking another soul's departure. The streets, normally alive with merchants' calls and children's laughter, now echo with an eerie emptiness. Imagine an enemy so lethal, so imperceptible, that within mere months it could decimate half of an entire population. No walls could stop it, no army could fight it, no gold could buy safety from it. Rich or poor, noble or peasant, all stood equally vulnerable before its merciless advance. This invisible harbinger of doom struck with such devastating speed that entire families vanished overnight, leaving their homes as silent testimonials to their existence. In mid-14th century Europe, a microscopic bacillus named Yersinia pestis was about to rewrite human history. This tiny organism, unknown to the finest minds of the time, would become the architect of the most profound transformation in European society since the fall of Rome. Carried by rats and fleas aboard trading ships, it arrived silently in Mediterranean ports, waiting to unleash its devastating power. What happens when a disease becomes more than just an epidemic? When it transforms into a catalyst that reshapes the very foundations of civilization. The Black Death wasn't merely a health crisis. It became the force that shattered the medieval world's core structures, leading to revolutionary changes in medicine, society, economics, and human thought. As we delve into this dark yet fascinating chapter of human history, we'll discover how this catastrophic event became the unlikely midwife to the modern world. We'll explore how humanity's response to this unprecedented crisis gave birth to modern medical practices, transformed social structures, and forever changed how we deal with epidemic diseases. The Black Death stands as a testament to humanity's resilience and adaptability in the face of catastrophe. Through this exploration, we'll understand how this devastating plague became the catalyst for innovations that still influence our world today. From the birth of quarantine practices to revolutionary changes in medical science, from the transformation of social hierarchies to the emergence of new economic systems, this is the story of how humanity emerged transformed from its darkest hour. Let this journey through one of history's most pivotal moments begin. A tale of devastation and renewal, of collapse and rebirth, of how humanity faced its greatest challenge and emerged forever changed. This is not just a story of death and disaster, but of resilience, adaptation, and the indomitable human spirit. If you're fascinated by the mysteries of history that shaped our world, join us on this extraordinary journey. Together, we'll uncover the intricate web of events that transformed medieval society and laid the groundwork for our modern world. Through the fog of centuries, remarkable figures emerge as our guides through the apocalyptic landscape of the Black Death. Their stories, preserved in chronicles, letters, and medical treatises, offer us vivid windows into humanity's darkest hours. Giovanni Boccaccio stands as our primary witness, his eyes having beheld Florence at its most desperate hour. In his masterpiece, The Decameron, he paints haunting portraits of a society in collapse. Brother abandoned brother, uncle forsook nephew, sister left brother, and oftentimes wife abandoned husband. What more can be said? Fathers and mothers refused to nurse and assist their own children. His own survival of the plague lends his account a raw authenticity that resonates across 7 centuries. Through his words, we feel the terror of watching a thriving city transform into a mass grave. Guy de Chauliac, personal physician to Pope Clement VI in Avignon, represents the medical establishment's desperate struggle against an incomprehensible enemy. Despite contracting the disease himself and surviving, he continued his work, methodically documenting symptoms and treatments. His detailed medical observations, though limited by medieval understanding, laid groundwork for future epidemiology. "I was ill for 6 weeks in the greatest danger," he wrote, yet continued treating patients until exhaustion overcame him. Among the common people, we find stories of extraordinary courage and devastating loss. Consider the grave diggers who faced death daily, knowing their grim work might seal their own fate. Merchants who had to choose between economic survival and potential death. Mothers who nursed sick children, knowing they were likely embracing their own doom. Parish priests who gave last rites until they themselves succumbed. The internal conflicts these individuals faced mirror our own modern struggles with epidemics. The fear that gripped a merchant watching his neighbors die warred with his need to feed his family. The scientific ignorance of the time clashed violently with human instinct for survival, leading to both tragic mistakes and surprisingly effective solutions. Some fled to isolated countryside, while others locked themselves in homes with infected family members, driven by love to certain death. Collective despair manifested in extreme behaviors, flagellants whipping themselves through streets, believing their penance might stay God's hand. Yet alongside this darkness, individual hope persisted. Christians, Jews, and Muslims, despite their differences, often worked together to tend the sick. Wealthy families established hospitals, while common people shared what little they had with neighbors. The nobility found their privileged position meant little against the disease. Even queens weren't spared. Joan of England, daughter of Edward III, succumbed to the plague in Bordeaux. Yet some nobles, like Blanche of Lancaster, remained on their estates, organizing care for their peasants and maintaining order amid chaos. Particularly poignant are the stories of children orphaned by the plague. Chronicles tell of young survivors banding together, creating makeshift families in abandoned houses. These children, if they survived, would grow up to reshape European society, their worldview forever altered by their experiences. Medical practitioners of the time, though working with flawed theories, showed remarkable dedication. Jewish physicians, despite facing persecution and blame for the plague, continued treating patients of all faiths. Islamic doctors in Spain and North Africa documented careful observations that would prove valuable to future generations. Through these intertwined lives, we see the full spectrum of human nature in crisis. From the heights of sacrificial heroism to the depths of selfish abandonment, from innovative adaptation to paralyzing fear, their stories remind us that while diseases may change, the essential human experience of epidemics remains startlingly consistent across centuries. Step with me into a medieval city gripped by the Black Death. The sensory landscape that greets us tells the story of a world turned upside down, where the familiar rhythms of daily life have given way to a nightmarish new reality. Listen closely to the city's voice. The once cheerful pealing of church bells has transformed into an endless dirge, tolling ceaselessly for the dead. These funeral bells, once reserved for marking significant passings, now ring with such frequency that they blend into a continuous mournful backdrop. In the narrow streets, the usual bustle of trade and conversation has been replaced by more haunting sounds. The creaking wheels of death carts, the wails of the bereaved, and the desperate prayers of the living. At night, the silence is broken only by the echoing call of "Bring out your dead," a chilling reminder of the collection of bodies that will resume at dawn. The air itself becomes a character in this tragic play. The sweetly putrid smell of death mingles with the sharp, acrid smoke of burning bodies and possessions. Desperate attempts to ward off the bad air lead to strange new perfumes. The pungent aroma of vinegar used to wash hands and faces, the heavy scent of burning rosemary and sage in street corners, the bitter smell of various herbs stuffed into leather mask beaks. Physicians' masks, packed with aromatic herbs like lavender, mint, and camphor, create walking bouquets of scent that do little to mask the underlying decay. Touch becomes a dangerous sense. The rough texture of thick wool clothing, believed to protect against miasma, scratches against skin. Leather masks, stiff and unyielding, press against faces. The smooth coolness of metal coins gives way to rough wooden tallies as people avoid handling money. Even the texture of bread changes as bakers, fearing contamination, overbake their loaves until they're hard as stone. The visual landscape of the medieval city undergoes a dramatic transformation. Streets that once teemed with life now lie deserted, their cobblestones cleaned only by rain. Windows and doors of infected houses are sealed with boards and marked with crosses. The colorful clothing of medieval life gives way to somber blacks and grays, as if the entire population is in perpetual mourning. Plague doctors become terrifying figures in their bird-like masks and long dark robes, moving like shadows through the streets. The rhythm of daily life warps beyond recognition. Markets, once vibrant centers of community life, stand empty or operate under strict new rules. Transactions occur at a distance, with coins dropped into vinegar or passed through flames. Bread is purchased using long poles to maintain distance between buyer and seller. Family meals, once social occasions, become lonely affairs as people isolate themselves even from loved ones. Religious practices, deeply woven into medieval life, undergo radical changes. Mass is celebrated in empty churches or in streets, with priests standing on rooftops to bless people below. Funeral rites, once elaborate community affairs, become hasty, impersonal procedures. Bodies are buried in mass graves without ceremony, traditional washing of the dead abandoned for fear of contagion. Inside homes, families face impossible choices. Those with means seal themselves away, living off stored provisions. The poor continue to work, knowing each day might be their last. Children play quieter games, their songs taking on darker themes. Ring Around the Rosie echoes through empty streets, its lyrics a cryptic reference to their plague-ridden world. The night brings its own terrors. Torchlight reveals cartmen collecting bodies, their shadows dancing grotesquely on walls. The glow of fires burning infected belongings creates an apocalyptic backdrop. Some nights, the aurora borealis flames across the sky, interpreted by many as divine warning or punishment. This transformed world becomes the new normal, a reality so profound that it would forever change how humans understood their relationship with disease, death, and each other. The sensory memories of this period would be passed down through generations, influencing art, literature, and social practices for centuries to come. Our story begins in the steppes of Central Asia, where a microscopic organism would trigger one of history's most profound transformations. In 1347, merchant ships from the Black Sea docked in Sicily, carrying more than their intended cargo. Within their wooden hulls lurked Yersinia pestis, hidden in the fleas that infested the ship's rats. Like a spark in dry timber, this seemingly insignificant arrival would ignite a continental conflagration. The disease's progression reads like a military campaign map. From Sicily, it leaped to mainland Italy, following trade routes with deadly precision. Venice, Florence, and Rome fell in rapid succession. The pathogen showed no respect for borders or social boundaries, spreading through France, Spain, and into England by 1348. Ships, once the lifeblood of European commerce, became vessels of death, each port call potentially seeding a new outbreak. The speed of transmission was unprecedented. A town could go from its first case to near extinction in just months. By 1349, Europe had descended into what contemporaries could only describe as apocalyptic horror. Major cities lost up to 60% of their populations. London buried approximately 200 people daily in mass graves. Paris reported 800 deaths per day at its peak. Florence lost 3/4 of its population. The demographic collapse was so severe that some villages simply ceased to exist, leaving only names on medieval maps as testament to their existence. The initial responses revealed both human ingenuity and desperate superstition. Venice pioneered the quarantine system, forcing ships to anchor offshore for 40 days before landing. Cities established plague hospitals and implemented crude forms of contact tracing. Some communities turned to religious processions and flagellation, while others blamed and persecuted minority groups, particularly Jews. The more pragmatic responses, quarantine, isolation, and sanitation, would eventually form the foundation of modern public health practices. As the immediate crisis began to ebb, profound social changes emerged from the chaos. The massive population loss created a labor shortage that would ultimately crack the foundations of feudalism. Surviving peasants could demand higher wages and better conditions, leading to unprecedented social mobility. The Church's inability to stop the plague led to questioning of religious authority and the emergence of more personal forms of faith. The collapse of the feudal system was perhaps the most far-reaching consequence. With fewer workers available, landowners had to compete for labor, offering better terms and effectively ending serfdom in many regions. The value of human labor soared, leading to improved living standards for surviving workers and their descendants. The medical profession underwent a revolutionary transformation. The plague's devastation exposed the inadequacies of medieval medicine, based on Galenic theories and superstition. This failure spurred a gradual shift toward empirical observation and what would eventually become scientific medicine. Universities began performing more autopsies, leading to better understanding of human anatomy and disease. Religious authority faced unprecedented challenges. When prayers and processions failed to stop the plague, many questioned the Church's role as intermediary between God and humanity. This questioning contributed to the intellectual climate that would later foster the Reformation. Urban life transformed as cities implemented new public health measures. Streets were widened and paved, sewage systems improved, and hospitals modernized. The plague's legacy can still be seen in European urban planning and architecture. The economic system shifted dramatically. The decline in population led to increased per capita wealth among survivors. New economic classes emerged, including a proto-middle class of skilled workers and merchants who could now demand better compensation. The Black Death marked the end of medieval Europe and the beginning of fundamental changes that would shape the modern world. It demonstrated humanity's vulnerability, while simultaneously showcasing our remarkable adaptability. The social, economic, and intellectual transformations it sparked contributed to the Renaissance, the scientific revolution, and ultimately the modern age. These changes remind us that catastrophic events, while devastating, can catalyze positive transformations. The Black Death's legacy lives on in our public health systems, labor laws, and medical practices. It stands as a testament to humanity's resilience and ability to rebuild and innovate in the face of unprecedented challenges. What do you think about the impact of this pivotal moment in history? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Modern Age Chronicles for more fascinating historical content like this. At the heart of our understanding lies Giovanni Boccaccio's masterwork, the Decameron, written between 1348 and 1353. His vivid first-hand account of Florence's devastation provides us with haunting details. Such was the cruelty of heaven, and perhaps of men, that between March and July following, it is estimated that upwards of 100,000 human beings lost their lives within the walls of Florence. His descriptions of abandoned homes, untended corpses, and broken families offer unparalleled insight into the social collapse. Church records serve as grim ledgers of the plague's toll. The parish registers of the time, particularly those from England and northern Italy, provide stark numerical evidence. In London's parish of St. Mary's Woolchurch, records show a jump from 35 annual burials to over 800 during the peak months. Similar patterns emerge across Europe, with some parishes recording up to 30 deaths per day in communities that typically saw only a handful of deaths per month. The medical treatises of the medieval period reveal a fascinating blend of limitation and innovation in the understanding of disease. Guy de Chauliac's Great Surgery, 1363, stands as one of the most detailed accounts of the Black Death, offering systematic observations on the progression of bubonic plague. His descriptions of buboes, fever patterns, and infection pathways mark an early attempt at clinical documentation of an epidemic. Though based on flawed humoral theories, de Chauliac's meticulous notes on treatment outcomes and mortality rates across different social groups highlight the rudimentary beginnings of epidemiological study. His work not only provided practical insights for contemporaries, but also laid a foundation for future medical inquiry. Visual sources from the era further illuminate the societal and medical responses to the plague. The Tagebuch Bible, 1411, graphically depicts plague victims, emphasizing the physical toll of the disease. Manuscripts such as the Pest Noire highlight the now iconic plague doctors in their protective garb, while church frescoes vividly portray mass burials and communal processions. Medical texts of the time include intricate drawings of treatments and protective measures, offering a window into both the practical and symbolic elements of medieval healthcare. These illustrations serve as critical historical evidence, revealing not only the medical practices of the period, but also the cultural and psychological impact of the epidemic. The spread of the plague through Europe can be traced with remarkable detail thanks to meticulous historical records. Port logs document infected ships and early quarantine measures, illustrating the role of maritime trade in disease transmission. Trade route documentation and urban city records provide a roadmap of the plague's relentless march, while monastic chronicles chart its movement through rural regions. Modern historians have synthesized this data into epidemiological maps, showing that the plague advanced across Europe at an average rate of 1.5 kilometers per day, illustrating the interconnectedness of medieval societies. Archaeological discoveries continue to deepen our understanding of the plague's impact. Mass graves, such as those in London's East Smithfield, provide genetic evidence of Yersinia pestis through the analysis of skeletal remains. These findings also reveal patterns of malnutrition and pre-existing health conditions that exacerbated the disease's lethality. Urban excavations uncover shifts in burial practices and adaptations in city planning, reflecting the urgency of coping with mass mortality. Preserved clothing and personal items from plague victims shed light on the protective measures taken and the psychological realities faced by survivors. The economic toll of the Black Death is vividly captured in surviving commercial and legal records. Wage agreements from the period show sharp increases in labor costs due to severe worker shortages. Land transfer documents reveal the collapse of family lines and the redistribution of property, while guild records document the struggles of industries crippled by depleted workforces. The dramatic price fluctuations in essential goods and the transformation of inheritance patterns underscore the plague's destabilizing economic effects, reshaping medieval economies and paving the way for structural changes in European society. Administrative records from governments and municipalities demonstrate the institutional response to the plague. Public health ordinances, particularly those from Italian city-states, outline early attempts at containment through trade restrictions and sanitation measures. Quarter-session records from English towns and municipal regulations on property confiscation and redistribution reflect the social and legal challenges brought by widespread mortality. These documents highlight the evolution of public health strategies in response to an unprecedented crisis. Modern science has revolutionized our understanding of the Black Death through advanced analysis. DNA sequencing of Y. pestis from medieval remains has confirmed the bacterium's role in the pandemic, while climate data analysis offers insights into the environmental factors that influenced its spread. Archaeological evidence of rat populations and flea vectors has clarified the transmission mechanisms, while historical data modeling provides a detailed picture of how the disease moved across regions. Studies of genetic mutations in the plague bacterium reveal how it adapted over time, offering critical lessons for understanding pandemics today. The literary record of the plague adds a deeply human dimension to this historical event. Petrarch's poignant letters lament the loss of friends and family, providing a personal perspective on the emotional devastation. Accounts like Gabriel de Musis's description of the plague's arrival in Italy, Jean de Venet's chronicle of its spread in France, and Heinrich von Herford's narratives from Germany collectively paint a vivid picture of the pandemic's reach and impact. These writings serve as both historical documentation and a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of profound tragedy. These varied sources, when combined, provide a comprehensive picture of perhaps the most significant pandemic in human history. They not only document the immediate impact, but also help us understand the long-term transformations in European society, medicine, economics, and culture. Modern scholars continue to analyze these sources using new technologies and methodologies, regularly uncovering new insights into this pivotal historical event. The Black Death was a cataclysmic event that reshaped the trajectory of European history, leaving a legacy that continues to influence our modern world. Its most immediate and devastating impact was the staggering death toll. Urban centers lost 50 to 60% of their populations, rural areas saw mortality rates of 30 to 45%, and some isolated communities were wiped out entirely. Europe's population plummeted from 80 million to roughly 30 million, with recovery taking over 150 years. This unprecedented demographic collapse triggered cascading effects that transformed every facet of medieval society, from economics and medicine to social structures and urban planning. The economic revolution spurred by the plague was profound. The sudden labor shortage caused wages to skyrocket, with many workers earning 2 to 3 times their previous pay. Skilled laborers gained bargaining power, demanding better conditions, and women entered professions previously dominated by men. Agricultural workers negotiated improved terms and shifts in land use, such as transitioning from labor-intensive grain farming to livestock production, sparked innovation in farming techniques and tools. Land values plummeted by 30 to 40%, leading to the consolidation of abandoned properties into larger holdings, fundamentally altering the agrarian landscape and planting the seeds for modern economic systems. The Black Death also forced revolutionary changes in medical practices, laying the foundation for modern medicine. The period saw the establishment of permanent hospitals, public health boards, and systematic record-keeping, alongside the development of medical training standards and preventive medicine concepts. Empirical observation began to replace reliance on humoral theory, and infection control measures emerged, including post-mortem examinations and the standardization of medical procedures. These changes marked the beginning of a more scientific approach to healthcare, driven by the necessity of confronting an unprecedented public health crisis. Urban transformation was another critical consequence. Cities underwent radical changes to infrastructure, with wider streets improving air circulation, enhanced sewage systems reducing contamination, and waste management practices becoming more organized. Specialized medical facilities were developed, and building regulations enforced safer living conditions. Administratively, public health offices were established, burial practices were regulated, and emergency response systems were introduced. These advancements laid the groundwork for urban planning and sanitation systems still in use today. Social structures were revolutionized as feudal bonds weakened and a new middle class emerged. Increased social mobility created opportunities for skilled workers, while changes in inheritance patterns redistributed wealth. The religious landscape also shifted dramatically, with many questioning the authority of the church. Personal piety and alternative spiritual practices rose in prominence. The decline of monastery populations and transformations in burial practices reflected a society grappling with profound spiritual and existential crises, while religious art evolved to capture themes of mortality and redemption. The plague also marked the origins of modern public health systems. Quarantine measures, including the now iconic 40-day isolation periods, were implemented alongside port controls, travel restrictions, and rudimentary contact tracing. Prevention strategies such as street cleaning, food and water inspection, waste disposal, and animal control became standard practices. These measures, though rudimentary, established key principles that would inform future public health policies. Culturally and intellectually, the Black Death had a profound impact. Artistic expressions shifted toward memento mori themes, new representations of death, and an evolution in medical illustrations. Literature exploring the human condition under the shadow of the plague emerged, influencing thought and creativity for generations. Intellectually, the crisis spurred questioning of traditional authorities, growth in empirical observation, and the early development of the scientific method. Educational practices evolved, and medical literature became more structured and evidence-based, signaling a gradual shift toward modern scientific inquiry. The long-term consequences of the Black Death reverberated through centuries. Politically, it weakened feudal authority while strengthening central governments and urban governance. Economically, the rise of capitalism, banking systems, and new labor laws can be traced to the changes catalyzed by the plague. Technological advancements in medical tools, sanitation, construction, and agriculture reflected the period's inventive responses to crisis. Socially, the foundations of worker protection laws, urban planning principles, and emergency response protocols were laid, shaping the societies of the future. Ultimately, the Black Death not only marked the end of the medieval period, but also laid the groundwork for modern European society. Its impact is evident in today's healthcare systems, public health policies, urban planning, labor relations, and scientific methodologies. This catastrophic event, despite its immediate tragedy, stands as a testament to humanity's ability to adapt, innovate, and improve in the face of immense adversity. The transformative legacy of the Black Death reminds us of the potential for progress, even in the darkest chapters of history. The medieval medical understanding, deeply rooted in ancient theories and limited observations, reflects a world grappling with the mysteries of disease through the lens of tradition and emerging innovation. Central to this understanding was Galenic medicine, which emphasized the balance of the four humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Treatments like bloodletting, purging, and herbal remedies were designed to restore this balance, yet the lack of knowledge about contagion or microorganisms severely limited effectiveness. Arabic medical influence, however, introduced advanced surgical techniques, pharmacology, and organizational principles for hospitals, significantly enriching medieval medical practices. Yet practical limitations, including religious restrictions on anatomical study and poor sanitation understanding, left critical gaps in healthcare. The religious context of medieval medicine dominated societal responses to illness, particularly during crises like the Black Death. Disease was often interpreted as divine punishment, with sin seen as its root cause. Penance, prayer, and religious processions became common treatments, reflecting a collective guilt mentality. The Church, as the primary healthcare provider, organized monastery hospitals and provided spiritual counseling while maintaining records and overseeing funerals. Practices like mass healing ceremonies, saint veneration, and the use of religious amulets intertwined spirituality with healthcare, creating a deeply ritualized approach to disease management. Amidst these traditional frameworks, the seeds of scientific thought began to emerge. Observation-based methods slowly gained traction, with physicians documenting symptoms, recognizing patterns, and tracking treatment outcomes. Environmental factors were increasingly considered, leading to the rudimentary beginnings of statistical tracking and systematic documentation. These incremental shifts in medical thinking fostered innovation, including advancements in surgical techniques, anatomical studies, and the standardization of treatments. This intellectual evolution emphasized empirical observation, challenged traditional authorities, and laid the groundwork for modern medicine. The devastation of pandemics like the Black Death prompted practical responses that shaped public health systems. Quarantine measures, such as 40-day isolation periods and port control systems, were developed to curb the spread of disease. Physical barriers, including protective gear worn by plague doctors and building modifications for sanitation, highlighted early attempts at infection control. Administrative systems emerged, encompassing health inspections, disease reporting, and movement control measures, reflecting the increasing importance of organized public health efforts. The societal impact of these transformations was profound, altering belief systems and social practices. The Church's authority faced significant challenges, giving rise to personal devotion and new religious movements. Burial practices were reformed, and views of divine intervention evolved, fostering a shift toward accepting natural causes of disease. Social beliefs about class structure, labor value, and community responsibility were reevaluated, while awareness of individual rights and public health grew. These changes reflected a growing emphasis on empirical observation and environmental factors in understanding and managing disease. Culturally, the impact of medieval medicine is visible in artistic expression and daily life. Death imagery, particularly memento mori themes, proliferated in art, while medical illustrations advanced knowledge dissemination. Urban spaces were redesigned with better ventilation, street cleaning systems, and waste management practices, reflecting a growing awareness of sanitation. Social customs adapted, with new rituals around hygiene, food, and greetings emerging in response to health concerns. Educational practices evolved, prioritizing practical skills, public health education, and systematic documentation. Technological developments during this period advanced both medical and urban systems. Surgical tools improved alongside protective equipment, sanitation systems, and medical facility designs. Urban technologies like water purification and food preservation enhanced living conditions, while administrative systems for population tracking, death registration, and resource distribution laid the foundation for organized public health efforts. These innovations contributed to a more systematic approach to disease prevention and management. The legacy of medieval medicine resonates in modern systems. Evidence-based practices, public health infrastructure, and medical education standards trace their roots to this period. Concepts like hospital organization, preventive medicine, and community health responsibility were born from the challenges of the time. The systematic observation and documentation methods developed in medieval Europe have become cornerstones of the scientific method, influencing how we approach disease and healthcare today. Despite the limitations of their understanding, medieval medical practices and innovations profoundly shaped the trajectory of modern medicine and public health systems. This civilizational context demonstrates how the Black Death acted as a catalyst for fundamental changes in human understanding and organization. The period marked a crucial transition from medieval to modern approaches in medicine, science, and social organization. Many of these changes formed the foundation for our current healthcare systems, scientific methods, and public health policies. The plague forced medieval society to question its fundamental assumptions about disease, death, and human agency, leading to more rational and systematic approaches to health and social organization. This transformation, while tragic in its immediate consequences, helped lay the groundwork for the Renaissance and the eventual scientific revolution. Modern pandemics mirror many aspects of the Black Death, offering profound insights into human responses across centuries. When COVID-19 emerged in 2020, society faced similar challenges that medieval communities encountered. Like the medieval ports that first received plague-infected ships, our modern airports and travel hubs became vectors of viral spread. Quarantine practices, first developed during the Black Death, resurfaced globally. Venice's innovative 40-day isolation period finds its echo in our modern lockdowns and social distancing measures. The economic disruptions we witnessed during COVID-19 parallel medieval market collapses, though on a different scale and with varying implications. Social responses reveal startling similarities. Just as medieval communities sought scapegoats, Our modern world witnessed blame shifting and discrimination. The spread of misinformation during COVID-19 recalls medieval rumors and conspiracy theories. Even the debate between public health measures and economic interests echoes medieval dilemmas. Healthcare workers in protective equipment remind us of medieval plague doctors in their bird-like masks. Modern contact tracing reflects medieval attempts to track infection paths. The rush to develop vaccines parallels medieval searches for remedies, though with vastly different scientific understanding. The lessons from the Black Death remain relevant. Disease outbreaks still expose societal inequalities. The wealthy still have better chances of survival. Healthcare systems still face overwhelming pressure. Communities still struggle between isolation and maintaining social bonds. Our modern understanding of germ theory and epidemiology originated in lessons learned during the Black Death. Public health measures we take for granted emerged from medieval experiences. The importance of data collection and analysis in fighting disease became apparent during the plague years. The psychological impact of mass death events shows remarkable consistency across centuries. Both medieval and modern societies grappled with anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress. The disruption of funeral practices and mourning rituals affects communities similarly. Understanding the Black Death helps us prepare for future pandemics. The medieval experience shows the importance of early detection and rapid response. It demonstrates how diseases exploit human networks and behaviors. The plague's legacy lives in our medical institutions, public health policies, and social structures. Its impact on human psychology and social behavior offers insights for managing modern health crises. The transformation of medieval society after the Black Death suggests how modern societies might change following major pandemics. Economic shifts, social restructuring, and technological adaptations often follow in disease's wake. Our journey through this pivotal historical moment reminds us of human resilience. Despite devastating losses, societies rebuild, adapt, and often emerge stronger. The Black Death story continues to inform our responses to modern health challenges. Through understanding this historical catastrophe, we better prepare for future crises. The medieval experience provides valuable lessons about community response, medical innovation, and social adaptation during pandemics. These historical insights prove invaluable as we face modern health challenges. By studying the past, we better understand present crises and prepare for future ones. The Black Death's legacy continues to influence how we approach public health, social organization, and crisis management. The story of the Black Death reminds us that humanity has faced and survived devastating pandemics before. It offers hope and guidance as we navigate modern health challenges, showing how societies can emerge transformed and often strengthened from such crises.